Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Getting Into TV. I'm Tom, your host to learn everything there is to know about unscripted, scripted TV. This week I'm chatting to Tristan Griffiths all about what it's like being a VFX coordinator and talk a little bit about what it was like to be working in the VFX department on season 1 of Doctor Who. Usually I do a lot of research, but and I kind of understand what I'm going to be talking about. But with VFX, I really struggled. But I came out of this episode having spoken to Tristan and really just understood everything that he was talking about. So hopefully you do too. So wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, I hope you enjoy it, and hopefully you learn something too. Enjoy. So, hi Tristan, and welcome to the podcast. You're VFX coordinator. I'm very excited to chat to you about what it is you do.
Oh, it's good to be here. It's really, really good to be here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm really good. Before we get started, what are the type of shows that you tend to work on then as a VFX coordinator, or what you currently, or what was your most recent job then that you can talk to me about?
So, in my track record at the moment, which is quite short compared to other people you've had on here, I've mainly worked on sci-fi and fantasy. At the moment, I am on season 2 of Doctor Who.
Nice. I mean, season 1 was very, very good. I was a big fan of that, as you can see from the meep. Everyone deserves to have a meep on their wall.
Absolutely. I think we've got one in our office as well now.
Actually. I know. I've spoken to so many people about the fact you've got not the actual meep, but like the kind of sculpture, kind of like the bones of it, basically.
Is it the disembodied head of the meat
Yeah.
as well is somewhere around? Now we've got a cutout looking over us at one point. I'm not in my office at the moment because we're working on other things, but we have literally a cardboard cutout of the meat watching over me, and it's quite discerning.
I can imagine. I mean, one day me and my boyfriend were just sat here and I was like, "Can we put the meep on the wall?" And he was like, "Absolutely, we can." But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about you and being a VFX coordinator. I have a kind of idea about VFX, but I feel like VFX is one of them industries where people think they know something, but they don't actually know anything about it. And it's one of them things that I feel like a lot of people on Twitter talk about, and it's like you don't really know anything that you're talking about. So, what is a VFX coordinator?
So a VFX coordinator, there's lots and lots of different ways you could go into it. I think that's the reason why some people get so confused sometimes, is because it's such a there's so many things to do within it. I've been both sides of VFX. So there's vendor side and there's client side. I'm currently on client side with the production of the team, but I have been vendor side for Doctor Who as well, supplying things to our clients. It's quite a strange process to understand, and it's when I first joined myself, I had no clue of what the VFX process was, and I joined on His Dark Materials season 3.
Nice.
And I came in as a production assistant, and it's a very, very good position to come into because you experience everything from start to finish, the laborious process of planning everything down to the most minute detail, down to like what a year down the line, and you're seeing all these things come to life, and you feel like you worked on it. That it's like it's a labor of love.
Yeah, is that kind of like a run out role, like that entry kind of level? Is that what that is?
Yeah, so a production assistant I came in as it's basically doing odd jobs. It was such a good opportunity, and I would urge people, if they ever saw a production assistant job, to do it, because even if it's not the industry that you want to go into, for example, I wasn't entirely sure myself. I knew I wanted to do film and TV at one point. VFX wasn't something like I was really intrigued in. Like I said, I wasn't like, oh my God, like I know what I'm talking about. You see it on Twitter all the time. People say, oh, this looks lousy and this looks great, this looks amazing, and oh, this took us 2 months to shoot and stuff like that. It's all over the internet, and you go in and it's a very different vibe, and you get to see a lot of like different spectrums to it. You work with so many different departments, and it's so interchangeable. All the skills can go anywhere. You work with the art department to make sure the models and everything like that they've sent over, it's all accurately presented in the show. You work with locations to maybe do a helicopter shoot, or getting all your data wrangling crew up to where you need them to be. You need to work with production. You need to work with everything. Stage management to make sure there's enough room for all of your equipment to be down there. So I was across that on his Dark Materials. My production assistant role involved me literally doing anything that my team didn't have time to do. I've booked plane tickets to Spain and made sure all the team were, because it was the height of COVID and everything like that, making sure they all got their COVID passports, they're fully vaccinated and everything like that.
That was a pretty stressful job.
It was, but when you have an amazing team behind you, like I have, luckily on all of the shows, that sort of can, when you have the support, that sort of stress goes. It is stressful, and don't get me wrong, there's times where you get very, very tired, but it's like, it's, I'm trying to think of a way to explain it. It's very, you come home and you feel tired. And especially right now, this is something that goes for me right now. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of reviews to do. There's a lot of notes to take. There's a lot of, ingesting all material and stuff. And I'm feeling tired, but it's a good tired. It's not like, I've got too much to do, I can't get over it. It's like, right, I've done so much today. But you come away from it, you're feeling like you've been really...
I know what you mean. You're quite fulfilled. Fulfilled's not the right word. I know what you mean.
You feel like you've been productive. You don't feel like you've not done much. You've got to be so forward thinking, but also backward thinking as well, because you've got to think, right, okay, yesterday I did the notes yesterday. I didn't have time to do them yesterday. I've got to get them ingested today. Like that sort of thing. You've got to think about past self as well. So after production assistant job, I went on to VFX coordinator at a company called Painting Practice. And that's when I went vendor side. And a lot of people, when I took the job, reminded me vendor side is wildly different to client side. Vendor side, you are basically getting requests from client side to go, right, we want, I don't know, I'll think of a random example. It's we did a lot of work on Sutek from episode 7 and 8, and a lot of work on a time chamber. And we worked so much on the look of the time chamber and the look of Sutek, and we were literally going back and forth every single day being like, what do you think? What do you think? And they were giving us notes and amazing notes and stuff that we wouldn't have thought of. And we were trying to think of preemptively think of the notes as well. And it was my job to sort of be the one to take those notes from Russell T. Davies, take the notes from the execs, Joel and Phil, and then incorporate them and make sure they got back to the right artist. And then the artist would go, right, okay, I've done this version. Can you send it out to them again, please? And that was sort of my main job, was to track where we were at with that and essentially coordinate the rollout of our shots that we were chosen to do. And then now I'm on client side again. I'm the one in that position of, right, hey guys, we've got a review next week. We need you to come and present your shots. Is that okay? Is that enough time? And they'll go, yeah, that's fine. And we'll show those in a rollout of, we'll show it to the supervisors first. So my supervisors, Anne and Dave, they'll do a review. And then they will say, right, okay, yes, we like these shots. No, these shots need a bit more work done to them. And then from that, they'll then roll on to exec reviews. So we'll have it with one with Joel and Phil, and we'll say, right, here you go, what do you think? And they'll go, yeah, that's great. And the great thing is we have the vendors there in these calls as well, which isn't actually commonplace. A lot of people have like separate, so supervisors will just do the exec reviews and everything like that. And then we go straight into a review with Russell then after everything's been approved and like seen. So we'll show it then and we'll go, right, here's everything. Director, writer, Russell, what do you think? One thing with VFX is you've got to realize client side and vendor side, as much as you like a shot, as much as you like the look of something, there's always going to be notes coming back on it, and it's going to change
regardless of how good it is or how much you love it. I just want to say, like, that when I watched episode 7 of the latest season of Doctor Who and that reveal of Sutek, like the sheer scale and everything, I thought it was really, really well done.
We handed that over to Automatic, but it was our job to previs that sequence actually. Yeah. So we really, really worked hard on how to get that sort of reveal correct. And we were working really hard with Phil Sims, our production designer, and we were working really hard with the concept team, who was on our side as well, and with all the execs and upstairs VFX. We were really trying to figure out a way of how can we get this to be spectacular and terrifying at the same time?
It definitely had that sense of just kind of like scale and just kind of like this is
Yeah.
big, and it definitely worked. You mentioned something in there, the fact that you work with multiple different departments, like art department, the props and stuff. I just want to pick you up on that a little bit. Like, is that so in terms of say the latest season of Doctor Who, would that be a case of in that climax then, for instance, when you've got Shooty in the TARDIS, are you basically trying to make sure that the art, that solid object looks real when you make it in that VFX process? Basically, I probably explained that really badly.
No. You've done quite well there. Basically, you've got to make sure everything is working to make it look real.
Yeah.
I think I've said it quite bad there, but you've got to really work with the VFX. The team have really got to work with every single department. Art department, have we got the look of the vortex right? Have we got the look of the Sutek right? Is the rope like, looking real enough? Is this the same color as the rope? Is this the same, sort of thing? And if they were dragging it if they were dragging Sutek at this rate of knots, what would the sort of like looking at the physics of it? And this is what the physics would look like, and they would go, oh right, okay, maybe we need to make the rope shorter, or maybe we need to make the rope longer and bring him back a bit more, or bring him forward. And you're working with the director in that sort of sense so much. So much, because they are then the ones who go, right, okay, when we were looking at this, we were thinking on set that he'd be this far away. And that's why we got the eye line of the actor looking down there. And you got to go, yeah, the playwright's point something out there. The actors are looking in the wrong place. And you got to go, right, okay, so you got to lift Sutek up to match that eye line. And it's so many back and forth bits and pieces.
It's not just making Sutek, it's also like, I suppose, like the physics and all that kind of stuff with it, really, and you've got a lot to think about. In terms of, say, something like that, then that particular sequence, how long would something like that take for you and your team?
Oh, my team with painting practice were absolutely incredible. We had a 2-week turnaround for 80 shots for that entire sequence to supply as temp footage to the edit suites upstairs. So they would basically take it in, and when they were doing an edit review, they would go, right, okay, this is what it will look like, but it's not. It's just temporary footage. It's not hugely. It's like PS2 graphics sort of style, like swirling colors and everything.
The
like
best
that.
kind of graphics.
Yeah, it's the best kind of graphics, of course. Yes, they turned around that in a week and a half, and that was absolutely incredible. If you're looking at finals, the approval window grows big time. So we are looking at, usually on His Dark Materials, for example, I think everyone finished in November. We wrapped in November. I was then working until October behind the scenes.
Wow.
So everyone finished in November 2021, and then by October 2022, we had done all the VFX.
Wow, that's a long. That's basically a whole other job. Basically, that whole other contract. That's impressive.
It's a side that gets overlooked quite a lot. It's the post-production side of it. Is you are sat in a room looking at all the stuff that was filmed. We got directors, showrunners around you, execs around you, and we're going, right, okay, what do we need to do in this shot? And you're going through every single episode, shot by shot, going, this shot needs VFX. This shot needs VFX. This shot, can we somehow add a VFX shot to it or something like that?
It's a lot more than people think, isn't it? It's that's insane. It was 11 months. We've spoken a bit about specific sequences that you've worked on, but are there any other examples of, say, something that you've worked on that you can talk us through that VFX process? For instance, for someone at your level, like a VFX coordinator, that you could showcase what it is you do.
I think one of the best ones was the TARDIS arriving at Unit Tower, which they covered on Unleashed. I think they did.
I think it was really impressive how they did that. Really impressive.
Yeah. So essentially, what happened was Jamie, the director, came to us and basically said that he wanted the TARDIS to come in and basically skid through and end up at the bottom, and the camera to follow it. And we're like, okay, cool. We did something called previs, which is a pre-visualization. I don't know if anyone's covered it in the past, but it's a really, really up and coming bit of technology at the moment, because it allows the directors to see their scene before it's even been shot.
I'm not going to move on, just but adding another question to that. Can you just talk a bit about that previs
Yeah, of course.
thing?
Yeah.
Just talk about
Sure.
what it is and the importance of something like that for a show like Doctor Who. I think it'd be really cool to.
Oh, it's hugely, hugely important. I'm surprised it hasn't become more prevalent at the moment, like in many more shows, because the amount of directors who came in and like, oh, we've never done previs before. This is really helpful. If we do previs, there's something called tech viz, and there's something called post viz. And this is when I was with painting practice on vendor side. We would essentially previs was will show how it can help. Like, shot, like it will, right, what cameras do you want? Where do you want the camera? So, for example, with the TARDIS arriving, we had unit tower, the interior of the ops room, and we had the exterior of the tower. We had a full CG shot, and we labeled that up and saying, right, okay, this is going to be a full CG shot of the TARDIS spinning towards unit tower. And then we had the doors opening, which was part in camera, part CG, with the TARDIS coming down. And from that, Jamie could see, right, we need the camera here in the ops room on this lens, and you can follow it down then. How are we going to make all the eye lines go? And that's how we figured out, right, we're going to have to make sure all they stay at the same eye line as they go down.
Yeah.
We also do something called Tech Viz, which is, it was done really well on Special 2.
Okay. Blue Yonder.
Yeah. For example, because for such a VFX heavy and complex episode, it was really easy to be like, right, okay, we've got one corridor here, and basically we could color coordinate models of cameras. I'm going to say, right, if you want this crane move, you're going to have a set that's this big. We can't move the camera any further up and down.
You created what they needed. That's really impressive. So you didn't just create like the action sequence so they could see the scene beforehand. You actually created it so they knew what they needed to build.
Yes, exactly. So they knew exactly what they needed to do. I think they did it for His Dark Materials as well during Lyra's fall. It could be with stunts as well. Very much, right, here's where Lyra will be, and we're going to drop her this height. And if you're dropping at this height, you're going to get this effect with the camera as you go down. So you've got to move your camera at this speed to get it to match her speed. But it's really impressive what they can decide, because it really aids the director then to go straight into a big shoot day where it's like, yeah, we've got to, do a really big stunt today. We've got to do, we got to do this really complex camera move. But we know what we're doing now because we've already had the look, we planned it out.
They're not having to go into it blind or anything. I never would have thought that. Previous, I've kind of had an idea of, but I'd never actually thought that you would do it for that tech side. I think that's a really interesting thing that you do. I'm just moving on a little bit. But people that are listening to this, very much, they tend to be people that are trying to get into telly or getting into film. What skills do you think people need to do or need in order to do what it is you do?
You need to be able to communicate. That's the one big thing I've learned from this job. And this is coming from someone who has no prior experience in the industry, came in base level and learned on the job the entire way up. You need to be a really, really active member of your team. You cannot just keep things to yourself. You need to be able to tell everyone what is going on. You need to be so proactive and reactive at the same time.
It's so true. I mean, I feel like that's the same for any job in an industry. You cannot just sit back and relax. You have got to constantly be looking forward, and it can be quite tiring, but it's really worth it.
Yes, absolutely. And you've really got to think of it, and you've got to accept as well. No matter how much you plan things, things can always still go wrong. It's just one of those things of you've got to care enough about what you're doing to go, okay, I know where to leave it. It's one of those things of, if you think something's perfect, great. If it goes wrong, you cannot be able, you can't just be like, oh, that was so perfect. I don't know what went wrong. You've got to go, right, okay, things happen, move on. And that's one of the things is it's one of those things of what's next. You've always got to be thinking about that, no matter what.
In terms of your day-to-day as a VFX coordinator, but I suppose also in terms of like your team and painting practice, what is your day-to-day like? I suppose the best way to talk about it is a day on Doctor Who. What would a normal day look like?
So vendor side, with painting practice, I would basically come in and make sure all my emails were read, and if any responses came in through the night or anything like that, or any emergencies came in, I've got to basically be able to know what's going on. I've got to then make sure that all the shots that we have been working on were up to date and all tracked and everything like that. I've then got to look, most importantly, at my calendar, right? What's today? What am I doing today? I'll already know what I'm doing today, but I've got to just go through, right, today I've got a director previs review. So-and-so wants to speak about this one shot. We've got to make sure that this review is ready to go. He's going to want to speak about this shot. I need to speak to this artist here to get his latest work and put into a review link and get it ready to send out. I've got to send that 15 minutes beforehand so the director has a few moments to have get in the mindset beforehand. You really got to think about what the requirements for each meeting are for. And then, right, what's being shot today? Are we doing shoots? Okay, cool. Right, what's being shot today? Is it a VFX heavy day? Do we need to go and check if everything's okay with the data wranglers? Making sure they've got all of the stuff that we have, everything like that. And then you just make sure you get through the day.
Yeah.
And that's essentially, there's so many different things that could happen. But also at the same time, I had to make sure my team had everything that they needed. Artists, do you have all your models? Do you have all of the stuff you need from art department? Yeah. Or do you need me to go upstairs and speak to the guys from art department and get them to send the models over to you? And then some may say, what was the location of, Donna's house again? And I've got to go upstairs, speak to locations, right, okay, cool. Guys, what was the location of Donna's house?
So I coming onto this call and expecting it to be quite, I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting the job to be quite so collaborative with other departments. I suppose that's the best way to put it.
So collaborative, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's
the one thing that I learned as well coming into it. I was expecting very much the same. It's a lot of computer work. It's a lot of basically working with other people within your industry, but it's not. I found myself on His Dark Materials getting in contact with the art department 5 months after they finished, just asking them a question and be like, hey, what's this all about? And everything like that. And so it's one of those things, if you work so far past, is that you realize that you need these answers to these questions.
It's quite a fun job, it seems. Quite a fun job, though.
Oh yeah, it's really fun as well. Seeing some of the stuff that the artists are the real big part of VFX. I don't understand how some of them, like, you look at something, you go, it's had as many notes as you want, and you go, all right, yeah, that was worth it. That's such a good payoff.
I know what you mean. Just keeping on the thing of notes. We've spoken a bit about reviews. Can you just talk to me a bit about reviews, on what they're like, and the kind of notes that you tend to get in there? Because I think that might be quite interesting. Some of or what are some of the strangest notes? I don't know if you can say.
So sometimes you can have like an animation. So it's different types of notes that can come up. If it's about a character's animation, somebody say, oh, make it more like, for example, one big person that I can name shout right now is Russell Dodgson. He was the VFX series supervisor on His Dark Materials. Anytime he opened his mouth, it was just wisdom. Like, you could listen to him talk every single day.
Yeah.
And basically, Framestore, the vendors on His Dark Materials, would be coming to him and basically being like, look, we're actually struggling with this scene. We're not really sure how to get Pan to, react in this scene as well. And he'd be like, right, get him to lean back into his rear legs a bit. You give it a comment about that. Be like a slight muscle twitch on Yorick's nose or something like that, or like a slight curl on his lip or something. And then the next review, they'd be like, yeah, you fixed it.
That's crazy.
It's literally about, you got to, the one thing he said about was, we're having trouble with Will's cat. And they were like, we can't get this one bit. And he's like, it's because we're not used to seeing a cat say, oh. because a cat doesn't have lips.
I love that that's something that came up in the meeting. I spoke to, it's quite similar to the stuff that I was talking to Brian Fisher from, he does the puppet.
Oh yeah, Brian. Yeah,
Spoke to
for
him
sure.
a few weeks ago, and we were talking about how the hell do you make a puppet come to life? And I suppose it's the same kind of thing there, is how the hell do you make a computer generated image come to
And that's
life?
one big thing as well. CFX, and there's this whole argument at the moment about practical and digital. What do you use? And in response, having been on his Dark Materials, it is both.
Yeah.
It's 50-50 down the middle. Use as much as you either way. It costs a bit more, but the reactions we got on Daphne for her with Pan, absolutely incredible. The reactions, like Brian's puppetry helped so much for the Golden Monkey.
It just informs everything, doesn't it?
I think yes, the having something standing in, and we used to have a thing called it's a puppet pass and a puppetless pass, and it's a shot with a puppet and a shot without a puppet, and it supplies so much information.
Yeah.
And that's what our data wranglers' jobs. I also worked as a data wrangler on his Dark Materials, and that's their job, and they are really unsung heroes. They get all of the information on every single VFX shot in a show. They'll have reference boards, they'll have lens data, they'll have all of the information about what happens in a shot, what height the camera's at, what height the camera ends at, what the focal length is. They take so many notes. They are on set from the start of day to the end of day, and they are really on it. And at the end of every single day, they send all that information off, and it goes to the production side of VFX that then they send to the vendor side, and the vendor side really, really do appreciate it. They also do something called reference passes as well, and that's really interesting. Something really interesting I learned. I don't know if you've ever seen, well, you've probably seen on Unleashed as well. You've probably seen a couple of people come on after a shot and they have reflective.
Always wondered what that was until a few weeks ago and I watched the episode of Unleashed, and I think it kind of makes sense now. Is it basically, let me see if I've actually listened.
Go ahead.
Is it so the silver thing, is that so it can see where the light bounces? Is that kind of this right? And then the color thing, is that to see what that color looks like in that light? Is it?
Yeah. It's you're on the right lines. Yeah. So the Macbeth chart is the color chart. It's colors that are easily recognizable by a computer. And that's why you've always got to try and make sure your Macbeth chart stays as clean as possible. It's because the computer picks up on it and it's going, right, okay, these lights and this matte finish looks like this in this light. Reflection's exactly the same, but I've seen it down to a person's eyes.
Wow.
The reflection in a person's eyes. Right, okay, the light's hitting it here. It looks like the sun. Someone's going to have sun in their eyes.
That's crazy.
Like, it makes that decision. And in the matte side is very much the light on a matte clothes, like on a piece of clothing or non-reflective surface, like the wall behind me, or like my hat or something.
I've always wondered, like I said, I always wondered what the hell people did when they came on set. Because I did a few days location marshalling on his Dark Materials a few years ago, series 2, when they were in that kind of it was a location in Cardiff in a street, and they go through the, I can't think what they were called, the tunnel things into
the windows. The windows, I think. Yeah.
And they had that kind of stuff there. I was like, what the hell is that? And finally, I know what it is. I always find with VFX, because I think I understand, but I'm finding when I'm talking to you, I'm like, I'm understanding it. So
it's one of those things of you think you understand it, and this is a misconception I came into the industry of, and I was like, oh, it's green screen and blue screen, you're all right. And then I was like, oh no, it's so much more than this.
I mean, you bring me on perfectly to a question I did have. I was going to ask you, what are the common misconceptions of VFX? For me,
that it's a cheaper alternative. It's so expensive. I've seen some figures on a sheet and I've just gone. People say, oh, you're just drawing circles on a screen as well. And then it cheapens the experience. It's not, you're making something that's unbelievable feel believable.
Yeah.
And that's the one biggest thing that everyone in VFX wants to make. And I think it's very, very common misconception that, oh, people just use VFX because they're lazy. And
Yeah.
it's not. It is. You look at older films, and I love older films, and they're like, back in 70s and 80s when, Back to the Future was made and everything like that. They don't use many, you know,
Mm.
like CG shots, and people look at that and go, well, they didn't use it. And it's like, yes, but the technology wasn't available then.
Yeah.
You look at de-aging.
Yeah.
We've managed to get people who are, older than they are, look accurate to when they were younger. For example, the Robert Downey Jr. scene from Civil War.
That's true.
The de-aging scene, that I think that was the first time we've ever seen one close up.
I find all that stuff, it's quite unnerving in a way, but it's really, really good. I think that one that always sticks in my mind, and I don't know whether it's because it was good or not, but it was Harrison Ford in the latest Indiana Jones. I thought that looked good. It was believable to me. But I get what you mean. It's stuff like that. It just helps to enhance the story. I feel it's massively impressive.
Yeah, and it's I do get like some stunts are better when they're done physically. Like some stunts I've seen, like I think the Robert Pattinson Batman was the whole flight sequence, the glide sequence. I think that was practical, but with VFX help.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's a good mixture of both.
And I think that's what it should be. It should be that, because it goes back to what we were saying earlier with the whole puppets and the CGI.
Yeah.
It's not there to kind of prove that one's better than the other. It's there to kind of enhance, but also complement one another, and it informs.
Exactly. Practical can really help VFX, but VFX can also really help practical. It's both ways.
One of my, I don't know whether it's something that you would have worked on, but on the latest season of Doctor Who, it's not necessarily VFX. I think it was more it was in Boom in the Stephen Moffat episode, but he just touching on the whole thing of technology assisting practical. Is they had that massive screen, like not the volume, but something along that line. And I think it's that kind of thing of it's not taken away from the set or locations. It's adding to what the props and locations are, and that's what it is.
That's a really, really, really up and coming piece of technology at the moment. Volume screens are, well, it was a VP screen, but a volume screen is something that's really up and coming, and it was really made prevalent with the Mandalorian series. And it's really, really, really it adds to the actor's experience as well. So you see more believability. You're not just acting in front of a green screen. You're not just, you're out there and you're going, oh my God, this is a nice planet, or this is a war landscape or something like that. And you can see everything around you.
I think what they can do with that is it's amazing. I just wanted to talk a bit about what the hell painting practice is, because I've heard a little bit of it because my boyfriend did work experience and he was talking to me about it, and I was like, what is painting practice? So that's my question. Is basically, what is it?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because that's what I used to tell people. When people used to ask, I used to get that question all the time. Painting Practice is a rare company, actually. It doesn't just focus on the VFX. We supply concept art as well. So some of the concept art, I think most of the concept art actually came from a team within Painting Practice that worked really well with Phil, and very closely with Phil, who used them as their concept team. As his concept team. And a lot of artwork came from it. It's not just CG, it was artwork coming from it. And it's very much that bridge of a gap between art and VFX.
Yeah.
It's that jump that not a lot of people think about in the industry. It's right, how do you get from point A, where it's drawn on a piece of paper or it's on a computer, to point B, where it's shown on a screen? And we've got aliens jumping from the sky or something like that, and it's right, okay, we need everything from we need to concept what the aliens look like, we need to concept what the ship that they jump from looks like. I actually, thinking of an example, goblins special force, that was very much a case of how are these goblins going to look, how's their boat going to look? So there's a lot of back and forth with Phil and Nandor and Jordan, our concept team, and they were like, right, okay, are we, how's this boat gonna look? And it was all these different variations of this boat, so all these different versions of the goblins, interior shots, all drawn up. And then it would go from them and be like, right, okay, art department, here's everything that the guys concepted. And the art department would go, right, physics-wise.
We're gonna put a stop to what you're thinking, and we're gonna do this.
We're not gonna be able to build that. We can't build a flying ship in the middle of the air. We're gonna need if we're gonna build this set, we're gonna build it in bits. We'll build the corridor, the interior corridor here. But if it's gonna have a window here, we'll need VFX. And then they'll send it back down to us and say, look, we need, for example, tech viz of how big we want the green screen to be in that window. How much, if we're traveling past it with a camera, will we see all of the green screen, or will we see the end of the green screen?
End of the green screen.
The time chamber was a big one as well, because we had to sync the camera movement to the movement of the projection. So if the camera turns left, the projection's got to move slightly with it as well.
You've got to make sure it's all in.
We don't see any of that. That was mostly done just with a bit of VFX treatment to it. That was mostly done in camera. The time chamber was. It was an absolute incredible feat.
I can imagine that was pretty exciting set to walk onto.
Did you go to the time chamber?
No, I didn't. I didn't go to it. I wish I had. I was just saying. I can imagine it was pretty.
I was there when they turned it on, and it was one of those things. If you go, oh.
That's what I want. I just want to be able to. I don't want to necessarily go. I don't want my favorite show spoiled. I just want to be able to look at these sets and be like, "Wow, this."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
crazy.
One of the big ones is walking onto a set though as well. It's set like builds and stuff like that. It's so cool to just be like, and here is. Yeah. Like, you walk in and it's the underground of the space baby.
I mean, one of my favorite things, it's not Doctor Who related. I work down in Row-Flock, so I park my car in the West car park and I walk through, but every day I walk through Horby City, through the Casualty set.
Yes.
Having worked on Casualty, you walk through them front doors and you're in a hospital, and it's so impressive. It's so mind-boggling. Like, you just have that thing whenever you walk onto a set. It's just like...
I always make sure... whenever shoot's on, I'm always, every Friday, for a treat for myself to get through the week, if I have time, I would make sure, go and walk down through all of the stages, go one by one and just do a loop around each one and just take it all in. If they're not shooting, obviously, I wasn't getting in the way. But if they weren't shooting on the day, I would just have a quick look around. And it's one of those things of the thought that goes into every bit of it. I remember going around in his Dark Material sets and the intention craft chamber, and you'd be like, right, okay. And I remember Russ Dodgson was like, doesn't this look like stone? And then he knocked it and it was hollow. It's like, oh my god.
It's just crazy, isn't it? It's just like you don't expect. I had something very similar to that. I did a day as Doctor Who when it was still in Row-Flock, and they were in some kind of like alien planet thing, and it was like a stone built, but it just had that kind of, like, you touched it and it was just like, this is polystyrene. And it's just that crazy thing that it's so magical walking onto a set. I've got two more questions for you.
Go ahead.
From your time working as a VFX coordinator or within VFX or in telly in general, what are you most proud of in your time so far?
It's going to sound really corny, but I'm very most proud of the person I've become. I came onto the industry, like I keep saying, I came on with no qualifications at all. I did events management at university, nothing to do with film and TV, a bit maybe to do with like logistics and everything like that.
And also your communication skills and all that. It all worked.
It was all still there, but it was something that I was coming into an industry that I knew very little to nothing about it. And I came in, I was given a chance, and I'll forever be grateful to the people who gave me that chance. And it's just one of those things of, I came in quite doubtful of myself that I could do it. And I basically had my team behind me on his Dark Materials turn around and say, like, look, you can do this. It's not something that can't be done. It's not impossible.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, no, it isn't actually.
Yeah.
It's something that I can learn. It's something that I can really do. I've got this opportunity in front of me now. I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
And from that, I've just run with it. And it's a case of I'm finding myself more and more often understanding what people are on about, being able to predict what people are going to be able to say, what people are like, what in reviews people are going to say, being able to, right, okay, we're going to have to make sure we got time this week for this vendor, and we've got to make sure this vendor's like, that sort of thing. And it's so I've become a person now which can see of that, which 3-4 years ago now, in a bar job, I wouldn't have been able to see myself in that.
Yeah.
I would have seen myself, right, okay, I've just got to get through today and, just earn some money and, get through it. And I've really found my purpose.
Yeah.
And it's nice to say that.
That's a really
because
nice answer. It's like, it's really nice that it's not. Like, I was expecting you to say something specifically about the industry or about, but I think that's a really nice answer, because so many people, I feel like, go into the industry and they want it so badly, but they just can't. Like you kind of get you see one vision thing.
Yeah.
But then, like you're saying, I basically, I just think it's really nice how it's changed you, or how you've become a different person because of it, and it's just helped you shape.
Yeah,
I think it's a really, really nice answer on how good the industry can be.
yeah, it can be transformative. It's really, really, looking at the person I was 4 years ago, I wouldn't be able to, organize a feast in a castle, like, that sort of thing. Like, and now I see myself doing all of these things, and it sounds stupid because I did events management and I wouldn't be able to organize anything. But at the same time, I've come into this and I've gone, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I've got this test shoot soon. We need to make sure this is all done, ready for that. Or, we need to. It can be, when I was on His Dark Materials, it was very much like, we need you to go down to London and record people doing ADR. We need you to do that now for witness camera. And it'd be like, right, okay, I'm going to London tomorrow.
Yeah. That's the thing about this industry. Even with what I do, it's like I started filming stuff that is actually like doing my own VTs, and it's like, we need to go do this next week, and it's just like, you just kind of get flung into things, and I think that's the beauty of it, is you get flung into, you don't get that opportunity to kind of overthink it. You just do it, and then you learn, and it's really good, I think. But yeah, I think that's a really nice answer. Thank you for sharing that.
That's all right.
I've got one final question. What have you been watching on TV recently? Anything good?
I watch reruns. No,
I'm honestly, I ask that question and people either take forever to answer it because they haven't been watching anything recently, or they say they've been watching like old sitcoms or reruns. And I'm like, this is I love that though, because I'm the exact same, and it makes me feel less guilty about constantly watching reruns.
I think for me, it's my girlfriend Lucy. She mentions this all the time. It's something that I didn't see myself, because when I was in university, I'd be watching, like, as soon as The Boys came out, I'd be on that straight away, watch it all in a day. Stranger Things, watch it all in a day. Binge watch. And she made me realize it's like, there are comfort shows that you can watch and just switch off to. Hers are Friends and How I Met Your Mother, and then mine, I found out, was more like Futurama or something that I could just switch my brain off to. And I enjoy a guilty pleasure of mine is just an action film, like a Michael Bay film, just something that I could just switch off and be like,
someone's got to watch them, okay?
Explosions.
Someone's got to watch them. They're not for me, so.
I find myself sometimes, if I'm watching like a Tarantino film or a film with like a really complex message behind it, I'm like, right, I've really got to think about this, really got to be switched on the entire way. I can't really miss any information. And then I sit back and like, a big action film, I'm just like, I can really switch off and really know what's going on the entire way.
I mean, just on Michael Bay, just want to say, one of the Transformers movie, but one of them's got a really great soundtrack. and I cannot remember for the life of me.
All of them do.
There's one on Spotify, and it's got like 4 tracks on it. It's so good. Whoever's listening or watching, I'm going to put a screenshot because it's one of my favorite soundtracks. That is the one good thing I will say about one of his movies.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think, like, I don't get me wrong, I like a story-based thing. I love Lord of the Rings. I love, like, you know, the big epic sagas. But it's just something at the end of the day when you've had a really, really busy day and you're just you can't think anymore. And that's what the beauty of film industry is about, is it can relax you with an explosion. And you can go,
That's so true. I'm gonna just clip that up, and that's gonna be the whole thing for the rest of the series. Now you can relax you with an explosion. Thank you so much for chatting to me today, Tristan. It's been so good. Like I said to you earlier, I feel like I actually understand VFX a bit more. It's always that kind of industry that I'm a bit like, I don't understand, like computers and numbers and stuff, and I'm like, not my thing. If I can understand it, I feel like someone that is hopefully watching this and wants to get into it will definitely understand it. So yeah, thank you.
That's my message to people, is that it seems like a daunting industry. The VFX industry can seem like such a daunting industry.
Yeah.
But when you really take the time to think about it, it's really, really, like, it's one of those things that can be really, really a payoff, and it's really, really fun to be involved with.
No, definitely, completely agree with you. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing everything. I think it's been a great chat. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for watching and listening to this week's episode. I'll be back with another episode in a couple of weeks' time, where I'll be chatting to Brian Fisher all about what it's like working with puppets, and specifically things like the meat from the specials with David Tennant on Doctor Who, but also the daemons from His Dark Materials. He actually created all of them and worked with them as well. And we really go in depth about what it's like to create the puppets, and also what it's like to be the puppets, if that makes sense. It's honestly one of my favorite chats that I've had. Really, really, really interesting. So that'll be coming to you in a few weeks' time. To keep up to date with everything, or to find any jobs or anything that I post and share. Basically, if you love TV and want to work in the industry, or just love being in the industry, follow all my socials, because I post so much stuff to do with TV, and I just like talking about telly. So feel free to go and search Getting Into TV, the podcast, or Tom Dix over on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and you'll be able to follow all my stuff to do with telly and this series as well. Also, I've got LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me on that. But other than that, it's a pleasure to bring you this episode. I really hope you learned something from it as well. I'll see you next time. Bye.